Hello everyone and welcome to this new video about the Go programming language. Today we're going to look at arrays. So arrays are one of the most important data structures that we will see in Golang. And so let's start by talking about what an array is. So an array is just, for functionally speaking, a collection of elements of the same type. But be careful that, especially maybe if you come from other languages, for example, especially new high-level dynamically typed languages and scripting languages like, I don't know, Ruby, Python, JavaScript. But if you don't know these languages, don't worry. But if you don't come from these languages, then I want to, I want to place more emphasis on the fact that an array in Golang is a collection of elements at the same time of fixed size. This means that once we declare it, so once we declare a collection of elements of a certain size, for example, 6 elements, of a determinate type, then we won't be able to add new elements to this array. So, for example, imagine that you have an array of 3 elements, okay, 301, 401, 501. Then if I want to add 601 to this array, but I initialized it to be an array of 3 int elements, then I won't be able to do that. And in the next video, we will see how we can do that using another data structure, and that is slices. We need slices to dynamically increase the sizes. And if you come from C, and again, if you don't know C, don't worry about what I'm saying right now, you can think of arrays as just standard C arrays, and slices as basically calocate, malocate, basically arrays where you're allocating memory dynamically on the heap. So this is how you can think that if you come from C. So let's first see how we can just declare an array and not initialize it. So to declare an array, we can use the var keyword, as we saw also in the previous videos. And then the general syntax is var, as we said here. Then we're gonna have the identifier, so the name of the array. So we can call array1, for example. And then we're going to put the number of elements in square braces. So basically the general syntax will be number of elements in square braces, and then the type. So suppose that we want to define an array of 4 strings, then the way we would do that is square braces, the number of elements, 4, and then string. And so this is how we can declare an array. Now, also another important thing that you have to know is that if we declare an array and we don't put anything inside it, so we do not specify any of its elements, then Golang by default sets it equal to an empty array. So we can try and print this array out and see what happens. As you can see, we get the empty array out. Also, as you can see in Golang, you can print out arrays directly like this, and it will just print the elements. So now that we've seen how we can declare arrays, let's also see how we can declare and initialize arrays. So to declare and initialize an array, we can do it, of course, as we've also seen in other videos. When we declare and initialize a variable, we can also use type inference, meaning that we can also declare an array using this operator here. Let's first see how we can do it by specifying the type without type inference, and so how to declare it and initialize it using the var keyword. So again, let's say we want to define an array 2 that is a collection of 5 strings, and so let's say 5 string, and then we want to initialize it to, for example, hi, hey, hello, and some other random strings. So in order to do that, we're gonna write on the left like this, var array2 and the collection of 5 strings, and then we're gonna put an equal sign. Then we're gonna put again 5 slots, so with square braces, and then type of the array, which is gonna be a string, and then with curly braces, we're gonna start to list the elements of the array like this. And so, for example, I'm gonna put here hey, then hello, English, Chinese, Mandarin Chinese, and Arabic. Okay, so this is basically an example of an initialization and declaration of an array at the same time. So now if we try and print out, actually to not throw an error, we need to print both of them out. So if we print the array out, as you can see, we get all the elements. Okay, so now that we have defined an array, basically all these strings, which we will see then in Golang, a string is also a slice. Actually, we have to. Okay, let's not talk about it yet. But basically, for now, don't worry about it. Let's just give a very high level view. But basically, the strings that are inside are placed one next to each other in memory base. So now that we have an array, we also can not only just access the whole array and print out all of its elements, we can also print just one element out by accessing a specific element inside of it. And we do this by basically just assigning a number to each element, starting from the first one. So we start to count basically. But it's important that you know that we start to count from 0. And if you come from any other programming languages, I'm sure you're already used to it, unless you come from Pascal, for example. But basically, if you've never programmed before, or maybe come from Pascal, then just know that we start to count from 0, meaning that the hey string is at place 0 inside this array, then the hello is at place 1, English is at place 2, and the other strings are at place 3 and 4 respectively. So, for example, imagine that, let's just make another array of numbers. Maybe let's set it equal to array 3, then let's let it be a array of 5 integers. Then we can put 1, 22, 44, 55, minus 32. Imagine that we want to print out 44. Then what we will do will be from the print line, and then we would say array 3, and then with square braces we will access the third element, which is basically 2. So by starting to count from 0. And so if we run this, actually let's comment out the this thing here. So if we run this, we get 44, which is the third element, but it's on the second index. And for example, if we want to print 55 out, then we will just increase it by 1 and get 3, and let's see what we get. We get 55, as you can see. So this is basically how you can print out single elements of an array, accessing them by their index, basically. As we mentioned earlier too, we can also declare and initialize an array using the definition operator, :equals, or just var equals without the type. For example, we can redeclare and initialize our array tree array by saying var3 is just equal to, I forgot how many elements were there, but let's suppose it was 4 elements, integer type, then 11, 33, then minus 2 and minus 5, okay, something like that. Or you can also declare and initialize it with the :equals operator, like this. And so both will work. For example, if you try to comment this out and just leave the other one, then if you run it, we get minus 5 in this case, because we printed out the element at array position 3, which is the 4th element. And again, if we on the other hand we remove the comment here and we place it on the other line, we see that it still works. So we get also define array in this way. And another thing that you should know is that just like with types, when we declare and initialize at the same time a variable with the :equal operator, or with var equals without specifying the type, we infer the type. We can also infer the number of elements, and the compiler can tell it from the initialized value. How can we do that? We will put 3 dots inside the square braces like this, and in this way, as you can see, it will work. The array will have size 4. That is the size of the elements we placed inside the initialized array. For example, if we add another element, it will still work, and it will have size 5. So this is another way to declare and initialize arrays, and where we will infer the length of the array and also the type by declaring it like this. And also notice that if you want to print the length of an array, you can just use the LAN method like this, and as you can see, it will print out the length of the array, which in this case is 5. And the last thing that we need to see in this video is how to declare multidimensional arrays, because sometimes we might want to work with data that can be represented with a matrix. So how can we represent a matrix in Golang? Well, a matrix in Golang can be just represented by a 2-dimensional array like this. And to declare the 2-dimensional array, we can just say a var, as before. Let's use the :equal operator, and then we can say the number of rows in this case, then the number of columns. For example, let's say that we want to declare a 3x3 matrix. Then we will just specify numbers of rows and columns in square braces like this, and then we will specify the type. And then we will let's initialize and declare it at the same time. and we will now include the arrays. And a two-dimensional array, and this also holds for three-dimensional and general n-dimensional arrays, is just an array of arrays. And so in this case, this is just an array of three arrays of three elements. And an example of this can be 1, 2, 3, then the array 4, 5, 6, and then the array 7, 8, 9. This is a valid 3 by 3 matrix. And if we try to print it out, we can see that we get the following array of arrays, also known as a two-dimensional array, also known as a matrix. So with this said, I think we've said enough, and in the next video we will introduce the other important notion of slices.